Welcome to a special edition of the Monsters of Geek podcast as we are going to do a preview of the NBA Finals for the 2016 season, as it will be the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors for the second year in a row. And today we've got our panel of NBA experts. I am your host, Aaron. We've got Andrew and we've got Joe here today to just preview the NBA Finals. This is a late night, kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing, but we wanted to give it a whirl, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Guys, just overall, the playoffs. Let's just give some reactions to the 2016 NBA playoffs. Andrew, what do you think about the playoffs overall?
I just want to start off right off the bat and point out that you're already showing your Cleveland bias by listing them first over the Warriors. I heard that.
Listen, I know there's a reason. There is a reason that host is in front of my name. See, I can do pretty much whatever I want to.
Up to and including being wrong. No, I'm just kidding. The playoffs have been, a pretty wild swing between wildly entertaining and not, I guess is the best way to put it. The East had some interesting or some long seven-game series. There wasn't a whole lot of, I would say there wasn't a whole lot of good basketball in those series. And then out in the West, the story has been really the Thunder and Steph Curry's injury. It's been entertaining. Watch the Warriors win without Steph and then kind of swing back through. Of course, Game 7 last night was incredibly entertaining, as was Game 6 on Saturday night. But yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. I think especially the last few games, I've texted you at least once and said something like, "Man, God bless basketball. This is just amazing."
Joe, what do you think about the playoffs in general, as far as just Andrew, as far as the quality and everything else? What do you think about the overall playoffs on both sides of the conferences?
The East was extremely boring, but I think it's just because you have one really good team, and then the others are really competitive in nature and in roster. Besides that, the West was fun. I'm glad Portland got out of the first round. Seeing Golden State actually win without Steph was kind of cool. And then I think the emergence of Klay Thompson on becoming one of the best shooting guards in the league, if not the best, in the playoffs. So
let's jump into Game 7 a little bit. As Andrew alluded to, me and him texted back, especially from like Game 5, 6, 7, when I would get home and I would actually be able to watch some of it. It was a wild, probably the last five. Well, from Game 5 to Game 7, it was a wild kind of finish for the Warriors. Warriors down 3-1 heading into Game 5. And really we had their backs up against the wall. Andrew, you watched the majority of those games. I usually watch from about second quarter on because, again, working a night shift job or having a night shift makes it a little bit tough to get home to see everything. But we texted back and forth. Let's talk about that Game 7 a little bit. The Thunder again started off like they did all their wins, leading in for the majority of the game, and then kind of let it slip away in the second half. Talk about and we'll talk about how good Golden State is. And I don't want to lay this all on like OKC choked, but a lot of it is that in the third and fourth quarter they just kind of fell apart.
Yeah. It's all over ESPN and most all sports talk radio shows today, but it's because it's true. It's not necessarily that they choked, although that's a word I heard somebody say today that we just assigned to the losing team. If Golden State had lost, then they would have choked. If Oklahoma City would have lost, then they would have choked. But really, it just came down to Golden State is comfortable playing from behind. They're comfortable playing with a lead. They're comfortable in close games. And Oklahoma City has not figured out how to play with a lead and then how to play from behind in late game situation. You saw it. It was I guess a textbook case in the about mid third quarter last night. Reggie Miller pointed it out especially. The Warriors come back. They've been down 13. We're down 8 at half. They come back. They start hitting threes. Curry gets going. Clay gets going. And Sean Livingston dunks the ball and gets an and one. Like everything.
He always gets some kind of dunk where nobody guards him. Like the lane just opens up like Moses in the Red Sea, right? He just gets some kind of miraculous dunk.
Yeah, the secret is to have Steph and Clay trailing behind
That's
you.
True.
That tends to open up the lane. But there's all this going on, and the Warriors are up 3. They're up 3 points. It's a tie game, and the Thunder look like they're down by 20. I mean, they look like the Warriors did in games 3 and 4, where nothing's going right, nothing's going in, no fouls are being called, just everything is not going your way, and it looked like the Thunder thought they were losing by 20, and they were just down by 3, and that was really when you knew, and it they would kind of bounce back in the fourth quarter and give it a run a couple times, but even at that point, you kind of knew Westbrook's going to do his Westbrook thing where he tries to steal a show, and Durant's probably going to try to do the same thing, although Durant hit a few of his hero ball shots, and that's the story of the game is Golden State seized control late in the third quarter, and then Oklahoma City didn't do anything to regain control once that happened.
I think Durant went on a 7-0 run to cut it to 5 at one point. I think that's the closest that they got in the second half, where he scored 7 straight points. Talk about. Do you think it's kind of what we're talking about? Do you think Golden State? It's a matter of Golden State stepping up and just being the 73-win defending champion that they are, or do you think it's more OKC just not knowing how to shut down the second half and get a win?
Well, if it wasn't for Klay Thompson, would have been over. He had a huge game, and then Game 7 is when Steph really took over. And though they both had good games, Steph kind of took that game over. But we've seen through the whole year this year, Oklahoma City, or some people call them Choklahoma City, gives it away in the fourth quarter. That's been a plague the whole year.
Yeah.
And in the Spurs series, I thought they kind of went away from it. I thought they learned. I thought they grew up. And then you see it plague them in the late games, 5, 6, and 7 this series. So,
yeah, I think if you go back and watch that Spurs series, and I might be remembering this wrong, but I think you'll see, they had some blowout wins, just like games 3 and 4 were, and then they had, there was one game, I believe it was game 5, where hero ball just happened to work that time. Westbrook did, he pulled like a 30-footer or something, and it went in. If he hadn't made that shot, I kind of feel like the Spurs would have been able to pull that series out. But because he did, we just kind of let it go. We didn't talk about it. We didn't think about it because hero ball worked that time in that one game. But yeah, it did kind of seem that way because they did win the series. I agree.
Let's talk about. These are two pretty evenly matched teams. You're looking at the stats even from Game 7. This is for the minus the blowout games that OKC had. And really, minus the Game 5 win. Golden State really didn't have a blowout win. I don't think. I think it's pretty close, or they came from behind. Maybe games 1 and 2.
Game 2 was a blowout.
But I know Game 5 they won 120 to 111, or they was up pretty much that whole game. But Game 7, and much like the rest of the games in the series. This was like what I call, it's just even Stevens. Like you look at the stats last night, 56-54 in rebounds, Golden State, 20 assists. They both had 20 assists as a tie. Turnovers 11-7. Golden State had more turnovers than OKC did, but not by much. Points in the paint 32-30 Golden State. Fast break points 12-8 Golden State. Bench points 19-14 Golden State. So they're all pretty close. It's not like somebody's getting a 20-2 fast break run or turnovers. But what really was the story, and I'm sure you guys are waiting to hit on it, the 3-point line was terrible for OKC. We saw it last game. I think Durant and Westbrook shot 3 for 10 or 3 for 12 or something like that. They didn't make too many 3-pointers in that Game 6. Carried over to Game 7. OKC was 7 of 27, which is 25% from downtown. Durant and Westbrook 5 of 13. And then you look at Golden State, 46%, 17 of 37. Curry and Thompson, 13 of 23. It was just raining. And we talked about before kind of these hero ball is that when I was watching, when they was getting into the lane and really making plays, they was getting some and ones, and Durant and Westbrook was really kind of dominating the paint. And then all of a sudden, when they got down, Andrew kind of alluded to it, they started shooting threes, and they was contested threes, and they were terrible shots the majority of the time. And really, they're lucky they even hit the rim on the majority of them.
Sometimes they didn't.
Yeah, sometimes they didn't. And for every amazing Westbrook three-pointer where it was like a step back or he's leaning to the left or the right, he would, you would have that Roberson terrible air ball in the fourth quarter where he was wide open. That probably prompted him to pass up that wide open three late in the game. Guys, do you think it's just that, we always talk about OKC needing that third guy. Do you think that they need in the offseason to go out and get a shooter that can pull them back in the game when they need a big shot from three? Because even their big two, they're not three-point shooters, and it's hard to get them back in the game if they're not dominating the lane.
They're going to need something because KD's out of there.
No, I disagree.
But, I mean, they have to get something. I mean, if KD stays, you have to get a three-pointer. I don't understand why they didn't maybe sign Ray Allen to, like, a little bit of a contract just to bring him in off the bench to give him that extra shot or something. But, I mean, if you look at the stats this year, we always kind of compare, or we always say John Wall is a horrible shooter because he is. Well, from the three-point line, he shot like I think it was 34%, maybe 35% this year. Russell Westbrook shot 30%. He was like the worst point guard behind the three-point line. So either he's going to have to work on that, which, I mean, I like his game. I like that he drives in. I like that he's aggressive and likes that he gets to the free throw line. But they don't have to have someone to bail that out, and that's where James Harden is missed because James Harden can hit those shots. Not saying that they don't have to go find someone like James Harden, but someone that can constantly shoot the three, which you thought, Randy Foye would do when they pick him up, or Damian Waiters, or even Robertson.
Dion Waiters.
But nobody can hit a shot.
Andrew, what do you think about the, as far as Golden State, just a barrage of threes and those guys? I mean, it's almost like a layup. I kind of joked last night they missed a couple of layups, and then Steph and Clay would hit 25 bombs or whatever because they couldn't make it real close, but they could shoot it from half court and make it.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about how. I mean, we know how dangerous that they are, but I mean, if you're the other team, you hold your breath every time Steph or Thompson throws one up.
Yeah. I was trying to do some quick stat gathering, so I'm caught a little off guard, I have to admit. But it really did come down to the three-point shooting. I heard a stat today, and that's actually what I was trying to put together real quick. But I'm not getting the same numbers that I heard, so I'm hesitant to pull those numbers out. But the point differential for three-point shots versus the point differential that or the advantage, I guess, that the Thunder had for 2-point shots was crazy, because I think the Warriors, the number I heard, and it might have been over the series, like the Warriors outscored the Thunder from the 3-point line like 100 and some to 50 some or something like that. And then, but on all other shots, the Thunder had an advantage of, a lot more. But it basically came down to the 3-point shooting. And one thing that I think kind of got lost in the shuffle, and Steve Kerr pointed to it in Game 1, is for whatever reason the Warriors were fouling in Games 1, 3, and 4, the 3 games they lost. There was a quarter where they would just foul all the time, and Durant was getting to the line, Westbrook was getting to the line, Adams was getting to the line, and Adams is not a terrible free throw shooter. And I think
64% or something like that.
I mean, that's not bad for a big man.
No, not at all. Not for a big man, especially in the league with DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard, and Monroe, and all those guys that can't hit a ball outside a barn.
Andrew Bogut, yeah. And I think that kind of got lost in the shuffle because of the offensive rebounding, which was obviously important, and all the other ways that the Thunder were dominating them. But what it did was take Golden State out of their rhythm. It was their own fault. They were fouling. It's not like it was bad calls. They were fouling. And so they would get out of rhythm, and then they weren't hitting shots. And Curry seemed gun shy for the first 5 games, really. And there was just a lot going on But ultimately, yeah, it came down to the 3-point shooting.
I mean, it looked like Curry was gun shy to a point, but if you really look at the stats and look and see, I think he was like, because a lot of people were asking if he was really healthy because he didn't seem that he could lose Adams off those switches. But I think he was like 4 of 6 from 3-point when Adam switched over on him. So, I mean, it wasn't that he's really gun shy. I think everybody wanted to think that he wasn't healthy, and they just wasn't paying attention.
I agree that he was probably that the health thing was overblown, but 4 of 6 isn't really that many shots when you consider how many times Adams switched on him, which was more than 6 times.
I mean, I may have my numbers wrong. I might have looked at that wrong, but still. And you know, Golden State is a very unselfish team. So if it led to a better play, you know, Curry's going to do that. So
yeah, and then the 2 losses at OKC, they shot like 30% from 3, which is just not Warriors basketball. So there was a lot going on. And Billy Donovan, I did want to point this out, but he made an interesting point, and it probably sounds to most people like he's trying to cop out, and that's fine if you want to think that. But you know, he was asked about, you know, blowing a 3-1 series lead and how do you do that, or you know, how does it feel, or what reason do you have, something like that. And he said, "What
question they're going to ask about that, right?"
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's a natural question to ask. That's fair. I'm not blaming him for asking it, but you know, he kind of copped out, but I kind of agree with him. You know, he said if you look at game 1, that one was close throughout, or most of the way, especially towards the end of the game, it was close. And he said, I think they were trailing by 1, and there's a loose ball, and I think Adams or Westbrook one came up with it. I think it was Adams. And you know, that loose ball helped them get the lead, and then the Warriors missed some shots, and they lose game 1. He said, but if the Warriors just as easily could have gotten that loose ball, and if they do, then maybe they go on to win. And then we're just talking about a series that's 2-2 going back to Golden State for Game 5, and there's not a whole lot to talk about. It's not even a big deal that what happened in Games 5, 6, and 7, if there had even been a Game 7, would have mattered. But it all came down to that one fluky play, and we talk about that in football a lot because there's, you know, single elimination, and it's not a series, there's not a whole lot, but we forget about these one plays here and there in basketball because a lot of times it's not just one play. But that one play in particular was, I thought, smart of him to point out, because he's right. You know, it really did just come down to a play here or there, especially in the closer games. Games 1 and 5 in particular.
I know we're kind of ragging on OKC just a little bit here, but I mean, it was a very high intensity as far as the series goes. It was, you know, like Andrew said, some of the best basketball you'll see. And there were some sloppy parts here or there. There was some poor shooting by both teams in parts of the game, but it was a very highly contested series. I mean, both these guys went out, and it just came down to OKC just not being able to hit a shot in the second half. I mean, and it's amazing to me to have 2 guys like Westbrook and Durant that, you know, those are, I mean, most of the guys in the league would like to have one guy that you could go with under 5 to play in the fourth and be able to hit a shot. And you have 2 guys that you can do that with, and it almost seemed like, and this is, you know, go way back to when LeBron in the series where the Celtics were, they cut him down in game 6, I believe, in the Garden. It just seemed like everybody just stopped and watched. You know, Roberson passed up a wide open 3. Ibaka was kind of out of it in the fourth as far as shots, and his team did what the Cavaliers did with LeBron his first time around, where everybody just stopped and watched and just expected something to happen, and it just didn't happen. I think that's really what hurt them in the fourth quarter, was because everybody just stood there and watched. I mean, if you look at Game 6 and 7, Golden State outscored them 60 to 48 in the second half, and 54 to 40 in Game 7 second half. That's amazing to me, that somebody else just could not hit a shot. And a lot of it, maybe, you know, Durant and Westbrook, I felt like, did just lean on one-on-one sometimes. They didn't try to create shots. Westbrook had 13 assists. I don't know if he had an assist in the second half or the fourth quarter. I mean, he just wasn't very effective in getting the ball to guys that would shoot. And if he did, other guys didn't take the shot. And you could see Durant kind of jumped on Roberson, who passed up on the open three-pointer and pretty much got in his face like, you got to shoot that. Like, you have to shoot that. And that just builds the pressure on those stars. And we all can argue that, oh, the Stars need the pressure. They should bring the pressure. But at some point, when you're just not getting it done, you have to have somebody to get it done until you get your shot back. And, Westbrook was really dead in the second half. Durant did a great job in the fourth with that 7-0 run, but it just seemed like everybody just stopped and watched. And Durant and Westbrook didn't trust anybody but Durant and Westbrook to make a play.
Yeah, I think that's actually the problem. It's not that they stopped and watched. It's that Durant and Westbrook demanded that they stop and watch by not giving them the ball. They don't pass. We can give Durant credit for a 7-0 run. That was great. That was impressive. But that ignores the other shots that he missed, the ones that didn't hit the rim, that hit the side of the backboard. And Robertson had just airballed a corner three, a few possessions before on the one that he passed on. And Waiters ended up hitting the shot that he took off of the pass. So it's not like that was necessarily a bad decision. If Waiters is open, I'd rather have an open Waiters than an open Robertson shooting anyway. But, I think it still just comes down to they want control of the ball in those moments instead of running their offense. If they'd run their offense, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, I agree 100%. I think it's part of that Durant and Westbrook doesn't trust their teammates to make big shots. I think it's part of Durant and Westbrook just wants the ball, and they stop an offense. Like, they stop it. And when you see those guys, when you see that offense flowing, like when they played through Adams or they played through Cantor, that offense was much better when they started down low and opened up the perimeter a little bit more.
And neither of those guys were on the floor in the last 5
minutes. Tell me about it. Really?
That's what I was going to point out.
It's like, why isn't Adams or at least one of them not on the floor?
Well, I can see why Cantor's not on the floor because he can't play defense.
But they need an offense at that point.
But, I mean, with Adams on the floor, you got a great rebounder. You have a relatively good offensive player and a really good defender down low. And if he was getting burnt by Stevens and Thompson, by Steph Curry and Thompson already, I mean, why not have him on the floor to begin with?
And the Warriors were scoring. We talk about the 3-point shot, but in that third and fourth quarter, like OKC could not stop them from getting in the lane. Like, especially in the fourth, they had wide open layups where Steph just twinkle-toed his way into the lane and laid it up for nobody was around him. And that's where I was like, why isn't Steven Adams there? You at least got to challenge him. At least try to get a defensive stop because they were shooting threes. And that's part of it. Obviously, you don't want to get pulled up and get too close and they run by them there. But there was no perimeter or no defense in the paint, and they was basically getting whatever shot they wanted.
Better question: where was the guy that we call I block you at defending the lane?
Yeah, I looked at his stats in Game 7. He scored some points, but his rebound numbers were really bad. Like I don't know if I think he had a couple blocks, but that's wasn't much there.
He didn't shoot well either.
He's like 5 of let's see,
might have been tied.
He was 5 of 11 for 16 points. He was -7 on the plus minus.
-7. Wow.
And you can't have that on the floor. If you have, you got to sacrifice something. Your best, when you was up against the Spurs, the best lineup you had was when Cantor and the Big Kiwi was in. And
I don't think that lineup would have worked against the Warriors though, and it didn't actually when they tried.
Well, they didn't have a lineup to work anyway. Everything was always close, and if you're that close in the Game 7, why not try it? Why not try and get the rebounds that nobody else can get while you're on the defensive end, and put your 2 big men in?
Well, yeah. What's weird is that the Thunder, especially in Game 7, built their lead with not all the starters out because that's not how either of those teams play. But when I'm trying to remember because it was at the start of the second quarter when the Thunder built their 13-point lead. I think Westbrook was still in. Durant actually might have still been in, but I'm pretty sure one or the other was in. Well, I'm sure one or the other was in. And then I think Curry was sitting, but Thompson and Green were still out there. And I think that's when they built their lead. It was because Curry was out and then Thompson was out. When the Warrior starters were getting their rest in Game 7 is when the Thunder built their lead. Once they came back in, things changed. Of course, Draymond got his 4th foul in the third quarter, and that's when the Warriors went on that run, which was even more surprising to me because I think that Draymond is their most valuable player. I know Curry won the MVP, but we give that to the best player that season, not the most valuable player. Otherwise, it would always be LeBron. That's a different conversation, though.
Draymond's dirty.
All right, guys. We'll end it on this. What do you think? I mean, OKC pushed the 73 win, the record-breaking Warriors to the brink. What do you think they have to do in the offseason to, well, obviously sign Kevin Durant. That's a given. Which I think me and Andrew are in agreement that they'll probably sign 1 year, and then he'll get a big the big check the next year around when the salary cap jumps up to over $100 million. So what other things they have to say? So say they sign Durant, and Durant signed for at least a year. What other things that they have to do to improve this team to get over that hump that is Golden State?
I think one thing, I can't remember who said it because I read a lot about Game 7 today, but someone said that, and I don't think they have the cap space for this. And as a matter of fact, I don't think they have a whole lot of options as far as signing many people unless Durant leaves, but that's a whole other problem. Is get a Mike Conley, and they can't afford him. But if you get Mike Conley and play him at the point, then he can command the offense. He can play better defense, especially than Russell Westbrook plays. And then you can put Westbrook at the 2, wave goodbye to Deion Waiters, which is a welcome thing. Keep Durant at the 3.
Bill Simmons, bye-bye, Waiters Island.
Yeah. And then you got Ibaka at the 4 and Adams at the 5, and that is a legit starting 5.
That's a legit starting 5.
I would pick that team over the Warriors in a series because I feel like Conley could keep them in the offense in crunch time, in times when Durant and Westbrook tend to not want to do that. Could you get Westbrook to give up control of the ball that much? I don't know, but that sounds like a good plan to me. It's a good idea.
Joe, what do you think they need to do to get over the hump?
I think you get rid of Serge Ibaka. You have two really good big men. I mean, you're paying Cantor all that money to sit on the bench.
That's true.
Which, I mean, he's good coming off the bench. I don't think they should start him. I think that they do get rid of or Serge, maybe go after maybe Al Horford if he don't sign back with Atlanta. That gives you somebody that can, break out and hit those 15, 18-foot jump shots.
I think Joe brings up a good point about Ibaka. Ibaka hasn't been that superstar guy that we saw, in that run they had the finals against Cleveland when the first run when they had Harden and Durant and Westbrook and Ibaka. He really kind of came out of his shell. I'm not saying Ibaka's a terrible player, but do you think? I mean, that's the odd man out here. Like, here's a guy that you have Adams, which is a pretty good point, a pretty good shot blocker, good rebounder, tough guy inside. Maybe go out and get a Horford or a Conley and maybe do like a sign and trade or something to clear up some space for him to maybe get somebody else that's a little bit more effective because his jumper's off. He's never really had a great jumper. He wants to be a 3-point shooter, a stretch forward. He's just not that. He's just not very effective on the perimeter. He's great on offensive boards. He's a good shot blocker. I don't know. I think he's the odd man out, and if you can get somebody on the perimeter or maybe somebody more effective that can stretch the defense, that guy may be the odd man out there.
You know who they should get?
Who?
Ryan Adams.
Who?
Ryan Adams. Or Anderson. Sorry.
Ryan Adams a singer?
Sorry, Anderson.
I think that's going to help. Maybe halftime. Hey, great halftime show, but I don't know how that's going to help him beat the Warriors.
I was like,
had a brain fart. But yeah, Ryan Anderson, I think, would be the stretch four that they would like to have. Because we all know he can shoot the lights out. So,
but I feel like you have to, if you're going to get rid of Ibaka, who is such a good defensive player, you have to bring someone back that's just as good defensively, and that's a Horford. Horford's good defensively, good on the board. Maybe not shot blocker, but he's good, stout defensively.
Guys,
who's too stout defensively on the perimeter. I don't think that you can just be like, okay, we need to get rid of Serge Ibaka because we need somebody that can just play offense. You got that in Cantor. Like, if that's the case, just throw Cantor back in there. I think they need to get somebody that is good offensively, that can contribute on that end of the court, but also be able to hold his own against a stretch four or a bigger four.
Guys, I've got the perfect fit for the Thunder.
Go ahead.
Leroy Jenkins.
Hey, at least we got chicken.
The ultimate hero ball, Leroy Jenkins. It's a perfect fit. It's a match made in heaven. No, I'm kidding, but Bill Simmons is dying for the Thunder to trade Serge to the T-Wolves for the number 5 pick.
No.
I don't think so either, but
No.
that's what he's dying for.
Don't do that to me,
Why would you
Bill.
trade? I mean, I love Bill, but I don't understand. We probably need to get off this here in a minute and go on to the finals. But I don't understand trading him for maybe an unproven guy. And we know that if you don't have the top 2 picks in this draft, I mean, I know it's a deeper draft than what it was last year, the year before. But unless you're going to get one of those top 2 picks, why don't just trade Serge for somebody they can play and can help you right off?
Well, I mean, unless you have a guarantee that you can pick up either the first 2 guys or maybe like a Jamal Murray, someone that can shoot the ball, then I wouldn't do it. And if I was the T-Wolves, speaking of from a fan perspective of the T-Wolves, don't do it.
If you could hope that Chris Dunn from Providence falls to you at 5, then you could do what we were just talking about with Mike Conley. But point guard is such a tough position for a rookie, and Oklahoma City is in win now mode. So I agree. I don't know why you would trade for a lottery pick when you are in absolute win now mode, because if what we think happens and Durant signs a 1-year deal, then you better win now or you're toast, because Westbrook's gone next year too.
And you already spent a first-round draft pick on the kid from, was it Payne? Is that what his last name is?
Yeah.
Is that what his last name is, Joe? Who was, a lot of analysts, and I didn't watch Oklahoma City as much through the season. It's hard to catch any, NBA game as far as season-wise. It's just too long of a season. But they, that's an effective. He actually played really well with Westbrook and Durant in the game with him. And I think that's something that if they did go after a point guard, it would open them up to get rid of Ibaka and bring in someone that could, score a little bit more down low, but also maintain that defensive, tenacity that he has.
We know this boogie is for real.
Always Boogie, man. Boogie's always up for trade.
It's time for the finals, I think, with that one.
Yeah. All right,
let's talk Warriors v. Cavs. Warriors v. Cavs. Here we go.
So let's talk about the finals. The Cavs coming in, very impressive. I know they lost 2 in Toronto, and it really took first of all, it took Kevin Love and Kyrie shooting 4 for 12 in Game 3. Then it took, DeRozan and Lowry going for 60 combined to beat them. And those games were close, especially Game 4 was pretty close. The Cavs had got it down to 4 or 5 with about 5. So that game wasn't in the bag even with those 2 guys going off. I think Cleveland, and I texted Andrew this, when they kind of wrapped up the series. I said I think Cleveland became the best team at the right time. And I've said it before. If you go listen to our other podcasts, Spirit Sports and Sarcasm, I don't think Golden State wins the championship. I've said it before. I didn't like how they played coming out of the back end of the season. I thought they came out a little bit sluggish. We talked about Steph's injury. And I think he's fully healthy now. I'm not saying that's the reason. But I just don't know how a team can, they win 73 games against a much tougher league. They're bound to be a little bit roughed up here and there. I just didn't like their intensity coming out of the season. They maintained it. They came back with OKC with a lot of intensity. But really, I just don't feel, and this is just gut feeling to me, and maybe it's more if I want Cleveland to win so bad, which may be part of it, but I just don't think Golden State is playing as good as they did last year, and with a full Cleveland roster coming in, this is probably the most talented team that they face as far as everybody's healthy, everybody's going on, and it's an engine that can really run them over if they're not careful.
I think they match up a lot better with Cleveland. Yeah, the problem with the Thunder, other than I do agree they're not playing their best ball right now. I think it really just comes down to they're not focused. They're unquestionably the most arrogant team I've ever seen in my life, and I love it. Yes, and I love that about them. I think it's fun, it's interesting. I like a little flash in my sports, so I think it's cool. But they are without a doubt the most cocky team I've ever seen in my lifetime, and because of that, they believe that they can go down 3-1 to a team that they are mismatched against, and like OKC, and come back and win. And guess what? They're right. They can. And so I think it's theirs to lose. It really just comes down to focus, and that's where I think they're going to run into some trouble. Cleveland is an extremely talented team. I'm not saying that it's just if they come in focused, it's going to be a sweep. I don't think that. But I think it's theirs to lose, and if they come in focused and play their game, it's theirs to lose. I do believe that. I know you think that, and I think we talked about it again on Spirit Sports and Sarcasm, that we've been trained to believe because we've seen all these almost undefeated and these almost perfect football teams and all these almost great things happen in our life, that we've been trained to believe that teams get this far, come this close, and then fall short in the championship. And they may very well do that because I agree. Cleveland is a very talented team that's going to give them some challenges, present some challenges to them. But I think that we've been so conditioned, and you're still wearing your LeBron undie-roos, that we've been so conditioned to believe that we're not going to see the greatest football team, greatest basketball team, greatest whatever team ever, because we've seen so many failures that we can't believe that we might be on the verge of huge NBA history in the next 18 days, and we are.
We are. We're seeing LeBron James go 6 straight finals. Last year, I do reckon LeBron James had probably the worst team that he had since the 2007 finals around him because of injuries.
That 2017, I think there was a little bit more talent than that 2017. But when your guy, when your wingman is named Booby Gibson, you've got some issues.
but I mean, we got to look and see, because LeBron almost beat that team by himself last year. And if it was one case that we could point out that a losing team should have won the MVP of the finals, LeBron should have won the MVP of the finals. And
I agree.
Yeah. And I'm a basketball fan. I like LeBron. My favorite player on the Cavs is Caleb because I've watched him since he was in Minnesota. But this team, I think, is very good, very healthy coming in. Unfortunately for the Thunder, you had 2 really physical series with Portland and then one with OKC. Steph Curry hurt his knee, banged up his elbow a little bit. It's according to how physical the referees let this get. If they let it get really physical, you may see Cleveland win in 5. If they call it, you could see, maybe go 6. But I just don't think that LeBron loses a series with Kyrie and Love healthy this year. And if you thought that he had a series last year, I think this year is going to be something special.
I think the biggest thing, and we kind of talked about it a little bit on the other podcast as well, but I think Cleveland, because of the Channing Frye trade, really kind of opened them up. I mean, that gave them, we talked about the death lineup, the third quarter lineup that Golden State has. That gave them a death lineup that they could set Kyrie and they could set Love and bring in all these shooters and have LeBron kind of distribute. The one thing that I think I think that Golden State has some issues matching up. And the reason I say it is because everybody's going to have to guard somebody. Like they can't. You look at some of the other series. They had guys like, for example, against Portland, you had Damian Lillard and McCollum, and that's really all you really had to worry about. You look at Oklahoma City, Durant and Durant and Westbrook. Adams gave them a little bit of trouble. Let's just be quite honest. They really had to guard those guys. Last year in the finals,
they didn't have to guard Roberts.
Everybody in on that Cleveland offense and just converged on LeBron. Draymond Green could guard LeBron. Who's he guarding now? Does he guard Love or does he guard LeBron? Who checks LeBron? Is Thompson going to check LeBron? It's going to be interesting to see them challenge on the offensive side of the ball that Cleveland presents, because they're going to have to guard. Curry's going to have to come up and guard. They're going to have to be physical with them, and they're going to have to come up and be in their face. Is that going to take a toll when it comes to them on the offensive end? Can Cleveland wear them down with what they have?
So I have a friend at work who's really good basketball guy, and he's pretty smart. And we were talking about this exact problem for the Warriors today. If you put the Cavs death lineup versus the Warriors death lineup, their small lineup, if you want to call it that, the biggest problem you're going to have, because LeBron is a mismatch against anybody, but you put Iggy on him. He did well last year, and you live with that matchup. LeBron still has the advantage, but you live with that matchup with Andre Iguodala on him. That leaves you Draymond and Barnes to guard Thompson and Frye. They can handle that. But the problem is now you've got Thompson to put on Kyrie or JR, and then Curry to guard the other one. And it's not a size mismatch for Curry to guard Kyrie, but can he keep up with him? That's going to be the question if they do that. And then, if he's guarding JR, then JR can just shoot over him. And so that does present a big issue. But let me present the other side of that argument, and that is what in the world, how in the world does, and I think I skipped Love in that matchup somewhere, but Barnes or Draymond is going to guard him. But when you flip it and you put it on the other side of the court, and now Golden State is on offense, you've got LeBron on who? Iggy, I guess, or Thompson if you want to upgrade him. You've got Draymond in a mismatch offensively. You've got Curry in a mismatch offensively because Kyrie and Kevin Love are defensive liabilities. You've got two defensive liabilities on the other side of the court, and that is not where you want to be when you're playing the Golden State Warriors. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a high-scoring series, especially in those fourth quarters, because I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth because there's mismatches on both sides of the floor. Where do you hide Curry? You can't hide two players on defense, and the Cavs need to hide two players. And I don't know how that's going to play out, but it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to have some high-scoring fourth quarters.
I think you might see Deladova come in some occasions in the fourth quarter just for his defense. But I think it all depends on really what Kevin Love shows up. If you can feed Kevin Love early, feed him down low, get his confidence built up, I think that he could be a game changer in this series.
Well, we've seen with Love, if he gets going offensively, he's not a great defensive player. I think we can all agree with that.
He's a great defensive rebounder.
So you have to get to him to box him out on the offensive end and the defensive end as far as rebounds. So that gives him something to kind of hang his hat on. But if you get him going early, I've noticed, especially with Toronto, his defense is a little bit better. You see him kind of in the rhythm a little bit more. His defense is there. He's trying a bit harder on defense because he knows he's going to get fed on offense. And I think, Joe, I think it goes to, it's kind of like, a big man that gets a couple blocks and a couple rebounds. You got to feed him, and he automatically is going to continue to work harder on that offensive end or on the defensive end because he's going to get fed. I think Joe brings up a good point with Love. I think the biggest thing is Kyrie. Kyrie was terrible against the Raptors. Lowry lit his rear end up on the perimeter a lot, and Kyrie has been that. We can complain about Love, but like I said, at least he rebounds, he boxes out, he does everything to try to, if he's going to get by you, he's going to box out, trying to get the board. He's going to challenge. Sometimes Kyrie doesn't even challenge anybody. And I think that's going to be the issue. Do you put Kyrie on Steph Curry? Do you try to, put him somewhere else? But he's got to guard Steph Curry. Like there's no one else unless you bring LeBron over to guard Steph Curry, and you don't want Kyrie guarding Thompson because Thompson will shoot over top of him. I think Kyrie's that weak link, and I think Kyrie has to grow up really quick on the defensive end. And I just haven't seen that progression over the season of him becoming better defensively.
Yeah, I think that's going to be I wanted. So you're saying perimeter defense is going to be the problem for the Cavs because that could be a problem for the.
Well, they're so good on the boards. I mean, when we talk about
it doesn't matter if you're not missing.
Well, that's true, and I think that's where the issue is. If Kyrie cannot guard Steph Curry, because LeBron's going to guard one of those guys. You can say, okay, go follow Curry, or Deladova come in. Deladova did a great job on Curry. I mean, he made his money guarding Curry last year.
So who's going to guard Iguodala if LeBron guards Curry or Thompson?
Well, I think, and this is where the Cavs, I think, as far as bench
we were talking about this today. That's why I asked, because I think
you look at someone. Obviously, the one guy that you would pick would be Shumpert. Maybe Shumpert's a little bit small, but he could at least keep up with him. Or someone we haven't mentioned that I think is kind of a wild card in this series is
Dante Jones.
You say James Jones?
Dante
James Jones.
Dante.
I think Tristan Thompson is an X factor here. He really had a good series last year against the Warriors. I mean, he just ate up the boards. He can guard people on the. He's a little bit better nimble-wise. I think he could probably guard Iguodala on the perimeter for a little bit. I'm not saying he can't do it one-on-one, but he could hold him off a little bit. And let's just be quite honest. Iggy's not the offensive force he was, even 5 years ago.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
So I think Tristan Thompson, for what he does, and listen, if can Iggy kind of box him out? That guy's a beast on the boards, and I think it's you put him and Love, and they're eating up rebounds, and especially on the offensive end. Steven Adams ate them up on the offensive on the offensive boards, but Tristan Thompson is I say 100 times better offensive board than what Adams was. I mean, that guy just eats it up.
Why not? I mean, you could go if you're gonna go small ball. Why not put maybe J.R. Smith on Stephen Curry, and then let
Oh gosh.
let
Okay.
and let maybe Kyrie Irving just kind of sit back on AI a little bit and maybe help pick up a defensive.
Listen,
Like
Iggy would take Irving straight to the block. Post
Yeah, he
up.
posts them
but
up. Yeah.
I'd rather have that than Irving shooting threes. Or not Irvin, but Curry shooting threes.
All right, Curry's going to beat Smith and shoot threes anyway. It's not like Smith is a world beater on defense.
Smith's a little bit better on defense than what you give him credit for. I think the effort's there. I don't think the overall defensive talent's there, but I think his effort can bug Steph Curry. Now, bugging Steph Curry and stopping Steph Curry is two different things.
I mean, you're not going to stop Steph Curry.
And you forget about Shumpert. Shumpert's a good defender. Now, and we're talking about putting defenders on a guy that is going to go off regardless.
Yeah.
You're just hoping to keep him under 30. Like, if you keep him 24, 25, that's a win. You'll go into the locker room and be like, yeah, we kind of stopped Steph Curry tonight. But they've got different guys to throw at him. You can throw J.R. Smith at him. You can throw Shumpert at him. You can throw LeBron at him. You could even – they did a really good job of switching to Tristan Thompson last year that bothered them a little bit with the link. So there's some things that they can do. You're never going to stop Steph Curry, but at least you can throw different matchups. Kind of bounce him around a little bit, kind of like what OKC did. Kind of bounce him around, get physical with him.
Don't worry about Curry. Let Curry do his thing. Stop Thompson. Make Curry beat you without Thompson.
So, okay. Here's where I'm going to I don't know. Here's my question, I guess, or my point, is that you got the Thunder who just did everything you just described. They bothered him with their length, and they got after him. They got in his head. They bumped him around. They did all that, and he still ended up killing them in Game 7. They still ended up winning the series despite being dominated on the offensive boards. Cleveland is not going to be as good on the offensive boards as the Thunder were. But
I don't know about that.
Go look at the regular season stats. OKC was the best offensive rebounding team in the league.
That's regular season.
Okay, well, 82 games count for something. So go look at the stats, and you're going to see that OKC was a better offensive rebounding team. And so if the Warriors have already withstood that, and if Curry's already put up with getting beaten around and having 7-footers who are athletic guarding him, he's still shooting over Kevin Durant, he's still shooting over Serge. I don't really think that these are big concerns for the Warriors in a 7-game series. If it was one game, sure, it would be different. But in a 7-game series, I think that Thompson is going to get free, and unless they decide to just put LeBron on Curry full time or something. I don't think that's going to work because then you're creating other mismatches. I don't see the problem in what you guys are presenting to me, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't see where the Warriors are losing based on what you're telling me.
But I think let's go back to our Game 7 discussion. What was one thing that we said, holy crap, if OKC could have done just a little bit of this, they would have possibly won Game 6 or Game 7. That was a three-point shot. Now you take Cleveland and have them do everything that OKC did, and then have a lineup that can shoot threes. Everyone on that court can shoot threes at some given time. Even Shumpert can shoot a three, minus Thompson in that lineup. That's where I think it's going to be interesting to see the Cavs, a team that can actually keep up with them on the three-point line, and then all of a sudden do everything else OKC did. It's going to be interesting how Golden State reacts to that, because now you've got a team that is going to bounce you around, switch up guys on Steph, has the ability to play, with that smaller lineup. And yeah, sure, they're going to score points, but at least give them a little bit more defense, bounce them around a little bit, be physical with Steph and Clay. And now you got a team that, we got a rebound, they're running just like we are, and they're going to pop a three, and they can make them. I think that's the issue that we have, is that I think we all agree that the one thing OKC didn't do was that they couldn't shoot the three. And if they could have shot the three at 40% instead of 25% or 35% instead of 25%, maybe we're talking about OKC versus Cleveland in the finals.
Yeah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me, and I was just trying to pull that out of you guys because we weren't getting there.
There you go.
Because I agree. Like I said, I don't think the Warriors are going to sweep. I don't even think it's a 5-game series. I'll go ahead and say I'm taking the Warriors in 6. And I wish it would be 5 because I love seeing teams clinch on their home court. I'm assuming, can I make a prediction of what your prediction will be?
Sure.
I'm thinking you're taking the Cavs in 6.
That would be mine. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be cool because then you see the team win on their home floor. And I like both teams. I saw the Warriors in person because I was in California. Nobody vacations to Cleveland except apparently you and Shauna maybe in the near future.
Story house. Woo!
and seeing LeBron, right? Like that's
right. Yeah, of course.
But I just so happened to be in San Francisco. It was just a coincidence. But I have a personal interest in rooting for the Warriors in that I want to be able to say I saw the most successful team in NBA history play a game. Like that's a personal interest for me. Being a little less greedy, I don't really care which team wins. I like LeBron. I like Steph. I like Clay. I like Kyrie because he went to Duke. I don't care much for Kevin Love. He's neither here nor there to me. But I'm excited for the series. But anyway, I said all that to say I probably am showing my Warriors bias, but that's really just because I'm fighting down 2 people with a clear proclivity for Cleveland. So I got to hold down the fort for the Western Conference over here.
I have to say I'm probably more biased than Joe is for Cleveland.
Very much.
Joe, so Andrew 6 Warriors in 6. I'm Cleveland in 6. Joe, what do you think? What's your prediction?
I think it's Cleveland 5.
Ooh.
And chuckles and roofs all around, but like I said, Golden State's coming off 2 very hard-fought series. Cleveland hasn't really had a hard series. I mean, even that Raptor series wasn't hard. They're a little banged up. Cleveland's a little banged up, or not Cleveland, but Golden State a little banged up. I mean, it just depends, like I said, on the refs, how they call the game, how they let it flow. If they let it flow aggressive, it swings toward Cleveland. If they if they call everything, it's going to help out Golden State a lot. But, I mean, going back to the offensive rebounds, Tristan Thompson was the number 3rd ranked offensive rebound throughout the league for the 2016 season, or 15 season, 16, whatever, and he's ranked number 3 again in the playoffs. So he's a better offensive rebounder than anything that Golden State had, or not Golden State, but Thunder. And plus, I think that the Cleveland is a lot deeper than the Thunder is. You have players that can come off that bench and score. So
I do think Cleveland's bench matches up a whole lot better with the Warriors bench, because I mean, I think Billy Donovan played 7 deep. That's it. He just played 2 guys off the bench the whole series. I think you look at Shumpert, you look at Fry, you look at Deladova. You look at those guys, and there's a lot of guys that Thompson. You've even got guys like Mozgov if you needed a break that you could put in for a couple minutes. So that played big minutes in the finals last year. So I think the bench wise, it's going to be interesting how both of these benches really kind of work for both teams, because they've got deep reserves.
Yeah, the benches are going to be interesting. But again, with the offensive rebounding, team numbers are more important than one player. So OKC was the number 1 team in the league.
All right, we're going to end this argument. I see both sides. I do, but we're going to end this here because, listen,
we see which one's in the finals.
How long have I known you now, Andrew? What, 2 years, something around that nature? And then I've known Joe the rest of my life, and I've known them both. I've known them both enough to know that they will not let go of their arguments. The other guy won't let go of the argument. So I'm going to let go of it, and I'm just going to be the mediator and say, to your corners, gentlemen. And that argument is.
That's fair. But if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I don't know if Joe's that way, but I will admit if I was wrong. I will come on and say the offensive rebounding was clearly the reason they won. I will say
Cleveland to the finals, Oklahoma City's not. Just that.
Because they haven't played the Warriors yet.
I think the real question we have to answer here is: could either of these teams beat the '96 Bulls?
No.
Maybe.
That's all we needed to know.
So maybe Cleveland.
Did you notice?
Cleveland gave them a run for the money, but I don't think Golden State would.
God, no. Cleveland wouldn't beat the
I think it comes down. I think it really comes down to Bill Whittington and Luke Effie. I mean, those guys, really got to step up. That's where it kind of come from.
If you notice when I was talking about my personal interest in the Warriors, I chose to say the most successful team in NBA history and not the best team in NBA history. That wasn't by accident. I was being judicious there. But hey, I have one question for you guys because I hear a lot of people bringing it up, and I don't think it's going to be a problem, but you guys probably do because you're clearly rooting for Cleveland.
Hello, Cleveland.
So Dellavedova gave Curry a lot of trouble last year in that series. Anybody could see it. Nobody can debate it. He gave him a lot of trouble. In my opinion, and really it's not even debatable, Curry is 5-10 times the player he was last year. He's astronomically better than he was last year. I don't really believe that Dellavedova's gotten any better, and I think Curry's learned how to handle people like him. The Spurs beat him around. OKC just beat him around, and I think he's learned how to deal with that. Do you guys think that he's still going to be a problem for Curry on that side of the ball, or is it? Am I wrong? What do you guys think about that matchup?
I think
just those two players.
I think if they let it be a physical series. I think last year's series was very physical. I mean, you can watch all those games, and it was a very physical series. Draymond and James, and Iggy and James, it was very physical. Mozgov was very physical down low, and even perimeter play, Shumpert and Dellavedova was very physical with both Thompson and Curry. I think if the referees let it be physical, with Dellavedova as physical as he played Curry, and now you've got switching off on the LeBron or whoever the switch, Cleveland's got to get their screens down. That's what really hurt them last year. Was at one point, Golden State figured out those screens and they were switching off and they was getting open shots the whole time. And the fact that LeBron James had no one else that can score. But I think if they let it be physical, I think it does lend more towards Dellavedova at least keeping him in check. Because Dellavedova did great last year, but he didn't stop Steph Curry. But he kept him in check and kept him.
Curry was pretty bad that series.
Curry was pretty bad until late in the series. And then he started figured it out a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
It comes down to will the whole series be physical, and will the referees call it physically? If it's a little bit more on the touch and go side, then I think Dellavedova can be just as effective. But he was very physical last year, and if they don't call it physical, I think Dellavedova struggles.
I'm sticking to what I said. Stop Klay Thompson. You could try and stop Curry. You're not going to stop both of them. Stop Thompson, make Curry beat you.
I think Joe makes a good point. I mean, a couple years back when I was in high school, we had a kid named Brad Knuckles that played for Council High School. Andrew, I'm sure maybe you remember.
Heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, went to play for East Tennessee State University. Played in the tournament a couple years with those guys. He had a year where I believe it was the state finals, the state semifinals, where they stopped everybody around him and he scored like 50 points or something. And they lost by 4 points. And I think it's something that you don't see in the NBA very often when you say, okay, Curry's going to get his 30. If we can hold Thompson to 16, 18, 20 points, or Draymond to 10, 12 points, then let's take those other guys away. And Joe, you don't see that at least you don't see it very successful. Maybe that's maybe why people don't do it, but you have to maybe take everything away and really force Steph to be like, you're the guy. If you're the MVP, you're going to beat us. Nobody else is going to beat us.
Was you talking to me?
I'm right, of course. Silence. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
hello, Cleveland.
I didn't know if you said Joe for a reason, but yeah, I mean, I think in this playoff series, Klay Thompson's meant more to Golden State than Steph Curry has right now.
That's fair. Yeah.
Especially during the Thunder run, he had a big Game 5 and a big Game 6. Now, even in Game 7, he had a really good game, but Steph came on and took that game. But
Klay just had 20.
Yeah, but he hit some big shots to really kind of
early in the game. He did.
Yeah, kept him. I mean, you can argue that Thompson kept them in games. Like Thompson was the only guy that was really doing anything. In
I'm not arguing that they would be where they are without him.
No, I think watching Thompson play, I think he's one of the best players in the league, probably the best shooting guard in the league. Not only because it takes him just tenths of a second to get the shot off. If he has a window, I mean, he has the fastest shot in the NBA.
Don't tell Dion Waiters that.
And and I think that he can create his own shot. He reminds me a lot of Reggie Miller. If he didn't have a Steph Curry on his team, I think he would be able to do a lot of things that Reggie would have been able to do.
Probably right. That's a good comparison.
And he still does. But I mean, with the Splash Brothers, I mean, you have to take one of them out, and I think it's easier to take Thompson out than it's easier to take Curry out.
All
yeah.
right.
Hey, no, one other question.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I had a couple other things that I was going to bring up. But, yeah, one thing that I think Zach Lowe was talking about, and he's absolutely right about it, is if you watch the OKC series, the length really, 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 really got in the Warriors' head. Not just because they were missing shots in games 3 and 4 especially, but they'd be driving to the hoop and pass on wide open layups because they were just sure that somebody was trailing behind them about to block them. So they would make a bad pass, or they would kick out to a guarded player or whatever. Do you think that carries over in this series? Do you think they're going to be gun shy on their layups just because of this? Because they just played 7 games that way. If it was one game, it would be different, but they just played 7 games that way. Do you think that that's going to remain in their psyche for at least a couple games before they can get over that?
I think so. You got one of the best rundown artists to ever play the game in LeBron. I mean, we've never really seen anybody that could run down somebody and just swat their shot. And I think that Tristan Thompson, going back to Tristan Thompson, I think he's more athletic than the big men that OKC had.
I think he's very similar to what Adams does.
But I think
he's just a little bit more physical, a bit more beefy.
I think Tristan can run the floor a little bit better. I think he's a little faster than Adams, and that has to bear in your mind too when you're going down the lane, and you think you have a wide open layup, and you have either LeBron James or Tristan Thompson trailing behind you. It's on the way on you.
Well, I don't just mean on fast breaks. I mean in your half-court set. Yeah. Half-court set. They were seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
Well, they just like I think they have 2 players. I mean, look at Durant and Ibaka and Adams. I think they're missing one guy in that. I think Thompson and LeBron are obviously the longer guys that can cause a lot of issues when they get in the lane because of one thing. They both got really good catch-up speed as far as trying to get back to the ball, but they'll stand their ground, they'll jump with you, or they'll try to block your shot. I don't think that Cleveland is as effective as OKC would, because I do think Ibaka, I mean, he's a shot blocking artist, and you throw Adams in there. I don't think that Cleveland has a shot blocking artist as far as someone that you're like, holy crap, I'm going to pass this ball before he blocks it. I just don't see him being as effective. I think I'm with you, Andrew. I think that they'll be a little bit gun shy in the lane, but I think by game 2 they'll figure out, they're not as long as OKC. I think we can kind of finish in the lane a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. And then one other thing that I wanted to ask you guys opinion of is, and I can't remember who said this, so apologies to random person, but basically, it was probably Zach Lowe, but we basically all agreed across like I'm in the league, people across the league have basically agreed that LeBron's 3-point shot is dead, right? And it is. It's he doesn't really even try to shoot them anymore. And what defenses have done because of that is give him extra cushion so that he can't blow by them and go straight to the hoop and dunk on them or hit a layup or whatever, collapse the lane, kick out to one of those lethal shooters they got on that team. What that does is create wide open passing lanes for him to do what he's really best at, which is passing. That's not Andre Iguodala's style of defense, and I do believe that we're not going to see a whole lot of Andrew Bogut in this series. I don't think that's the game they're going to play. Just like Barnes was benched for the start of Game 7, I think Bogut's not going to start even in Game 1. I think Iggy's going to be out there, and that's going to be the game they play at least until it doesn't work. Which might be Game 1, I don't know. But anyway, if Iggy's out there, Iggy's not going to be a step 2 off of LeBron waiting on him to try and blow by the lane. He's going to be up on him. And does that disruption of those passing lanes that have been open for basically the entire season, disrupt the flow of Cleveland's offense? Does it create an issue, at least in maybe the first 2 games, before they can get a look at enough tape to figure out what's going on, why isn't this working like it usually does, and make an adjustment? Do you guys think that that's going to be a problem? Because I do. I think it's going to be a problem for a game or 2.
It could be a problem, but I think we go back to health of last year. You really didn't have anybody to help LeBron. With Love healthy, and even with Thompson healthy, you can have the pick and roll or even the pick and pop that could eventually, maybe back up Andre Iguodala a little bit, so that they won't get beat off those pick and pops or pick and rolls, because both those players can finish around the rim really well. Last year you had Thompson out there, you had Mozgov, but to tell you the truth, I'd rather have Love running a pick and pop or a pick and roll than Thompson or Mozgov. So I think having Love healthy, and if he actually shows up, which Love shows up, I think, it could really help in that situation.
I think it's according to how much they play LeBron in the post. I think he was obviously very effective last year in the post, and
that was out of necessity, though.
That was out of necessity. Now let's see how much he plays in the post with shooters around him. Mm-hmm. And I think it's according to, because let's just say this: I'm still scared to death of LeBron 1-on-1 in the lane. I don't care who guards him. He's too big. Yeah. He has a great first step. He can get in the lane. I think if they put him in the post a little bit more, and how the Warriors kind of respond to that, do they automatically shrink down and leave the shooters, or they guard the shooters and let them have a wide open lane? And I think, obviously it's pick your poison. You probably want to stay with the shooters, but if he can get going early on in the post, or if he can get in the paint, or even a mid-range jumper, I think that throws a wrench in it, because now you're like, okay, he's got his game going. Do we want to back off of him now and just let him shoot threes, or do we want to keep with the shooters and just let LeBron go to the lane every time? And I love Iggy. I think Iggy's I think Draymond's a great defender. But if he can get a couple, we've seen this with LeBron before. If he can get in the lane and get a couple easy layups, that opens up his whole game.
Right. Yeah. It's the same idea you're saying with Curry, though. LeBron's going to get. You're going to live with that. I'm just saying, as far as LeBron the facilitator, is Iggy's style of defense, which is not going to be to back off of him, going to disrupt some of the flow of the Cleveland offense as we've seen it throughout the playoffs and throughout most of the season. That's really what I'm getting at, and I think it's probably will. It's going to be something to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think it probably will. I think LeBron, as a distributor, he's going to get his assist wise as far as whether you're in your face or if he's going to back off. But I think
he's too good a passer.
Yeah,
he is.
But I do agree that Iggy isn't, and maybe Kerr's going to have to talk Iggy into it and be like, hey, you're going to have to drop off. I'm okay with LeBron shooting a 3-pointer. I'm not okay with him going in the lane. And then it also creates matchups where if he does get in the lane, it's according to how Golden State responds. If he can get in the lane and they start paying attention to that more, then that leaves Love and Thompson to fill in the gaps and everything else, even in the paint. I don't know. I think it will give him trouble, but just like Curry kind of figured it out against OKC, I think LeBron will probably figure it out at some point and be like, this is what I'm going to have to do. For sure.
Yeah, that's not going to win the series for him.
Right.
But I don't think you can back off is really what I'm saying. I don't think you can back off and say LeBron shoot a 3, because that's what opens up those passing lanes.
Even last year, if you look at the stats last year, LeBron averaged 8.8 assists per game. So I don't think it's going to be a deal, not a big deal, but it's going to be something that may bother him for, like you said, the first 2 games. He may even be watching tape from last year to see how Iggy played him. Iggy probably gave him the worst problem he had in the playoffs last year, and he still was a beast. In the finals. So, if I'm LeBron, I'm looking to see how Iggy guarded me last year, because I'm expecting the exact same thing this year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have, your 2 best players still with you, still healthy, I'm thinking how I can get them in the rotation, how am I get them started.
Yeah, and a lot of people are pointing to Kyrie and Love being there when they weren't last year and what that means. But this is a different Warriors team, and they're a lot better than they were last year.
Well, I
get that. I'm just saying we got to look at both sides of the equation here. Is really all I'm trying to do. Because like I said, I think Cleveland's an incredibly talented team. It's probably the best team LeBron has ever had, because I don't, those Miami teams were good at the top three, but they were not in the rest of, all the rest of the way down. I'm not sure they were. Maybe that 2014 team that beat the Spurs, but I'm not sure. Like, I think this is maybe LeBron's best team, and so I absolutely think they can pull off the upset. And Vegas does too. Golden State's only favored by 5.5 points in Game 1 at home, so it's going to be maybe a 2-point game or pick 'em when it's at Cleveland.
I think
That's nothing.
2-1 odds to win Golden State is. But what I was saying is I think your two best players on Golden State are a heck of a lot better than what they were last year.
Yeah.
With Thompson and Curry, and even with Draymond. I mean, Draymond has improved a lot, but I think, 2 out of 3 top improved players. You had Middleton that played for Trailblazers that went from averaging 6 points to like 20-some points a game, and then you had Curry, and I think Thompson improved. I think he's a top 3 improved too. So it's scary to think about what they could do with both of those players. So I mean, it's going to be a fun series.
I hope it is. Gosh, I hope it is.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most, minus some, even the Spurs series. I think the last time LeBron beat the Spurs. Those teams were very close match. I think this is probably the closest match final since then. Like, I just feel like as far as player-wise, you've got a lot of star power in this game. I'm sure that Adam Silver is just, shaking with excitement to have basically what, 6 of the top 20 guys in the league in a series. And you got Cleveland trying to get their first champ. You've got the record-breaking Warriors trying to get a back-to-back champ. I mean, this has every storyline possible. This is a sports writer's dream. I mean, it kind of writes itself as far as what this series can be. And I hope it's good. This is a push series. I mean, I want Cleveland to win, but if Golden State wins, it wouldn't surprise me. If Cleveland wins, it wouldn't surprise me. This is just going to be a really good basketball series. And basically, kind of harkens back. I think it's the closest thing that we'll get to those Celtics-Lakers finals as far as just an evenly matched team. It's going to come down to hustle plays, come down to stars making big plays in big moments. It's going to be really fun to watch, I think.
And let's face it, I mean, both these arenas sell out every night.
Great home crowds.
We said, I think top 3 home crowds you have. I think Oklahoma City will always be a great home crowd no matter what. But I mean, you have the top maybe 2-3 crowd.
Well, I say in the conference finals we probably had the 4 best crowds as far as team wise. Toronto. Listen. Toronto put, their crowd was very impressive. I thought they was awesome, for the Raptors. And I thought that as far as, I say it's probably Warriors, Cleveland, OKC, Toronto. But Toronto's crowd was very good. But we had lively crowds. Like, this is almost like a March Madness type feel from all of those crowds. I was very impressed with all the home crowds.
I feel like this is these two, Golden State and Cleveland, feels like a college crowd more than, and OKC more than any other crowd that you have.
And it makes a lot of sense for Cleveland and OKC because they're small towns, so they kind of feel like maybe college towns. It's surprising that Oracle is that way with Golden State, just because it's a major city.
Yeah, but to me, I think Golden State has always drew a really good crowd. Even
they have. That's what's surprising, though, is for one, this is the first 2 years they've been successful in 40, basically. And it's a big city. You don't really expect that a lot from big cities. But they do. They have a great crowd. It's fun. I still disagree with Toronto, but I'll let that go, I guess.
I was just impressed with them. I thought they did a really good job.
Well, I mean, any crowd's going to be good at home in the playoffs, in the conference finals. Like, Charlotte's crowd was good. I mean, like.
Well, I think the reason why Toronto's crowd was so good was just because, one, they finally won a playoff series, and then they made it to their first ever conference final.
Yeah, I mean, and it's exciting. I'm not trying to crap on Toronto.
Raptors fans, you can send your hate mail to Andrew Foltz at IHateCanada.com.
But can I just say something? Can we put the team back in Seattle?
Yes,
this is what, seriously, I kind of wanted OKC to win it because I really wanted to say, hey, shout out to Seattle, I really wanted Seattle to kind of get some pub. You gotta hate to be Seattle, man. I mean, at least the Mariners are halfway decent this year, but man, that sucks. That sucks to see OKC be so successful and not in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, at least I got the Seahawks. But
that's true. I forget about the Seahawks.
And the Saunders.
I'll forget about,
And the Sanders too, you know.
Yeah, the Sounders, good soccer team.
Yep.
You know.
I was gonna say the soccer team's pretty good, isn't it? Hey, so you guys want to hear my? I think Aaron, did you read that Iguodala story I sent you this
I
week?
read some of it. Yes, we've been
Did you
very
read the
busy.
end?
So.
Did you read the end? Probably not the end.
Probably not.
Okay, so they were talking about Iggy in Game 6, I guess. Having incredible defensive performance, forced 4 turnovers on 2 of the best 5 players in the world right now, and in Durant and Westbrook. Stole the ball from both of them twice or something like that. And so they were talking about, or he was talking about how that's not the game that he's most proud of defensively. And I didn't really even realize Iggy was this good of a defensive player, which is probably my own fault, but I guess I just didn't pay attention. But anyway, he was talking about the game he's most proud of as a defender, and he said it was when he was with the Sixers. I think it was like 2002. So he's got Kobe in his prime, coming back to Philly, which is Kobe's hometown, and so those games were always a big deal because Philly still loves them some Kobe. And he held them to 15 points, 17 points, just shut Kobe Bryant down in his prime. He said, "I'm so proud of that game, just because of who it was and when it was and how it was and where it was." And then he said, "But of course, we played them at LA later in the season, and he said I was late getting to the locker room or whatever, so they said that Kobe came by and asked for him, and they said he wasn't there, so he just left a message, and they said, 'Tell Andre 50,' and that's it. And Kobe scored 48 that night."
Hey, at least he stopped him for 50. Hey,
But I just love the gamesmanship, just the back and forth. We don't hear about a lot of that kind of stuff in the NBA, but I'm sure that's not the only time stuff like that happened. I just love it. I love it.
Andre was he's still a good player. I think he was one of the top. I'm not going to say top players in the league, but he was in the category of great. He wasn't elite, but we never really saw him play because he played for Philly and then he played for Denver. So
yeah,
and you really never got to see him play that much. So
you kind of forgot about him a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll end that here. So again, just for the record, Andrew's got Warriors in 6, Joe's got Cleveland in 5, and I've got Cleveland in 6. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go along. We'll probably do a couple more of these as the series kind of goes along.
We've been
trying to come up with ideas because I know in the main podcast we talk about some sports, but we've been trying to figure out ways to kind of get that out and trying to do certain things. I think these little podcasts about certain things will help that a little bit. So, but yeah, hope everybody enjoyed it. For Andrew and for Yeti, I'm your host, Aaron, and don't forget to go check us out at monstersofgeek.com and on Twitter at monstersofgeek. And then also on Facebook and YouTube under Monsters of Geek blog. Go subscribe to us there. And please on iTunes, go subscribe and leave reviews. Well, unless you don't like us, don't leave a bad review. But if you really like us, leave a good review, and that helps us get noticed a lot of times with the amount of reviews that we get on iTunes. And also go follow us on Spreaker. That helps us to get noticed over on that website as well. All right, so NBA Finals getting ready to get set Thursday, June the 2nd, so go check that out. And we'll be back with our coverage of the 2016 NBA Finals between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. Until then, let's hope for some good basketball.
Warriors.
Cleveland.
Hello, Cleveland. Goodbye, audience.
Cleveland rocks.